Hello, I'm Dave, and I'm going to show you how to remotely manage a switched PDU using the PDU's built-in IP functionalities. I'll assume you already know your PDU's IP address. You'll use that to access the device. You'll be prompted for your username and password, and after you've entered them, this Power Alert status page will appear in your browser window. There are other devices besides PDUs, like UPS systems, that use the Power Alert interface, but in this video we're going to focus on PDUs. We won't cover everything, just the most important things, but there are 4 major things we'll go over: device configuration, load configuration, network settings, and user configuration. And we'll go over them in that order. So let's talk about device configuration. In the Status tab, under Details and Device, you can select and enter the date the PDU was installed and give it a name, location, and region. Some of that information can also be entered up here, but make sure you put them in this area down here. And when you're done, click Save in the bottom right corner of the screen. This area here is for internal asset tracking. This is where you can input personal information about the device, like a numeric value assigned by your IT department or the device's serial number. This area is where you set thresholds for load level and output current changes. This is so that when either of those events occurs, an email notification can be generated. In the behavior area, you can enable or disable the device's auto shed and power on behaviors. The equipment area is where you can keep track of important information about your equipment. Let's check out the device tab, and let's look under controls. Most of these controls don't take any parameters, but this one does. You can set the device to delay before rebooting and delay before restarting. There's an execute button down here in the bottom right corner, and in this instance, once that button is hit, it'll wait 15 seconds before it reboots the computer or turns it off, and 30 seconds before it turns it back on. In the events area, you can set the severity level for different types of events for the different load types. Next is under Preferences. Under System, you can select the date and time and what time zone you're in. Under Miscellaneous, you can auto-acknowledge alarms as they come in, so you don't have to go in and individually acknowledge them every single time they come in, and this way you can clear them in a much more simplified manner. Also in this Preferences area, you can do a system restart. So now we've gone over the important elements of device configuration. Next, let's talk about load configuration. Go under Device and Loads. This will pull up the loads themselves. You can create groups, descriptions, and then under each event you can set different times, delays, and functions. Then the same goes for load groups. If you want to bunch groups together, you have to create them. You can do that by clicking this plus sign in the bottom right corner of the screen. So that was load configuration. Now let's talk about network settings. Under Preferences and Network, you can set your preferences. These are more or less industry standards, but if you need to select or change port counts or any of these things, this is where you would do that. The SMTP area is where you can configure your mail settings, and this is where you identify the sender's email address. The Internet area is all about your IP address settings, whether it's static, dynamic, etc., etc. The DNS area is for your domain name settings and your host name settings. So now let's talk about user settings. This is still under Preferences, but just move over to Security. We'll just go through these quickly. The Change My Password area is pretty self-explanatory. In the Users area, you can set up different profiles. There are different protocols, settings, authorizations. In here is where you set up your authentication, authorization, and accounting preferences. And in here is where you set up your Radius server preferences. Once again, anytime you make any kind of change in here, make sure you hit the Save button in the bottom right corner of your screen to enact them. And that is a very brief overview of how to remotely manage a PDU in Power Alert. If you have questions about any of the information in this video, contact your Tripp Lite representative or our customer support department. Thank you for your interest in Tripp Lite products.